Last but not least, the mandatory disclaimer. In this webcast, we speak about plans, directions, and this should not be used as a base to make strategic decisions. If you have detailed questions about a feature or availability for your environment, feel free to get in contact with your preferred SEEBURGER counterpart. And most of you probably already know that we have divided our presentation in those 5 pillars or 5 categories. User experience, integration capabilities, technology advantage, operational cost reduction, the deployment models, and Christian Gassmann will now take over the presentation and explain what we have achieved in those categories within the last 4 releases. So, Christian Gassmann, take it away.
Thank you, Michael. Welcome all. So our today's presentation is about the Q2 of this year. This includes the releases BIS 6.7 155 through 158. We've delivered again a number of major increments, primarily around user experience and integration capabilities, as well as some of the operational cost reduction and technology improvements. In this quarter, we have prepared 2 demos for today's session. One will show you the new app, DB Data Manager, and the other will show you some details around message tracking, actions, and a new journal view in this app. So what have we delivered for our area of user experience in this past quarter? Mention it, we have now generally released a new app called DB Data Manager. It allows you to manage data in external database tables that are connected to the BIS application. So it complements the app Map Table Manager for internal logical tables, and also allows now to manage external tables in other databases, not just in the BIS system database. In the area of the master data navigator, we're again making improvements. Here specifically, we've improved the search for object dependencies to make it easier to identify links between different master data objects and include further object types in the dependency search. We have improved the granularity of some of the object permissions so that it's easier to have some users, for example, set up certain partners like AS2 partners, but not have them also access more global settings like listeners or AS2 identities. So it allows you to limit the permissions to what they actually need and not give them too broad of an access. We've also improved performance, especially in the area of collections and transports in this past quarter. So a lot of this is of course based on your feedback from previous webinars and other sessions with you, our customers. In the message tracking, we have made some improvements around the data formats in exports to Excel, making sure that date and date time and number formats are correctly set when you export any of the data into an Excel spreadsheet. In the Control Center app, we have further enhanced the adapter interactions to ensure that you can view the attachments that are part of the request and response. Specifically, I think in the converter, it was necessary to make adjustments to allow that. So this should now cover all the adapters and their interactions and allow you to view attachments for testing directly in the file viewer. In the file viewer itself, we have improved and implemented to display binary Avro files in a text format. So it's now possible to view the content of these binary files in a human readable way, typically in a JSON representation of the content. Last but not least, the classic front end has now been removed from standard installation of BIS. So a new installation will remove the access to the classic front end. Obviously we're working on finalizing this through the end of the year. Let me get to our first demo of the DB Data Manager. So what have we now made available to you is a new app as part of our portal runtime. Let me actually reset this. So what does it do? It allows you accessing a data source defined in the BIS master data to any external database, and then importing tables from that database into the view here so that you can manage the data in those tables directly here in an app in the BIS application. The use case obviously is primarily for things like cross-reference tables or other types of tables that live in an external database. Maybe they are also managed from other areas or are automatically filled with data, but you have then the ability to view and manage the same data also as part of our BIS portal. It also allows you to assign access for other users. So it has a role-based access control. You can allow other users to view the content of those tables and also to create or update new content or existing content. So we see I have one table currently in my view, a partner table. So I can open this table. So this shows me directly all the data in that table. I can directly edit or create new data in here. And obviously this is directly saved back to the external data source. I can guide the user through the setup. So I have the ability to modify the configuration for each column, for example, to allow selection of values rather than having to type everything as a text. So this is configurable currently through a YAML definition you see here. So it defines things like my labels for the view, labels for columns, and it allows me to define mandatory fields, text fields versus selection fields. So I can do this directly here in the configuration. Some of this may later be also modified or represented as a GUI configuration. Currently, this configuration can also be downloaded and uploaded, so it's possible to transport this configuration from one system to another. So let's take a look at how I would add a new table. Typically, I select the data source. I can type in part of the table name. So for example, I want to pick the product codes. I can give it a display name. And then I can go and define the access control for this table. So I can allow another user, like my colleague Michael, to access the table. So I can give him the necessary access to, oops, no, hold on. I think he's already got some access to it. I might have to reset that from a previous demo. So you see here, my access right now is full access for all of configuration and data. So let me add Michael here in the product codes. No. Sorry, I think something is not working currently with my table. Oh, 1 second. Let me try and reset this one more time. Okay. I think I have made a few changes in the previous demo that I didn't reset correctly. So let me remove the table and all the reference to that table, just so to make sure that I can correctly add it again. All right, so now we have product codes fresh from the start. Yeah, so this works now. Sorry about the earlier glitch. So I can give Michael access, for example, to view the configuration, but not edit or delete it. I can also give him access to view, create, and edit data, but maybe not delete any. So then this allows me to, for example, give my business users some limited access to those tables and have them enter information or review information. Yeah, as I said, this can also then be transported over to another system. So I have the ability to save this configuration and move it across to staging or production environment. Okay, good. So what else have we planned in the area of user experience? What are we working on currently? In the Process Monitor app, based on your feedback, we are making further enhancements around the search. We want to introduce an advanced search that allows you to collect search results, search processes that you have identified, so that you have a more advanced query across the processes that allows you to build up a complex search conditions and display the result of such a search, even have it as a persistent collection so that you can come back to it later and, for example, remove or resolve an error condition and then restart all the processes of a collection so that you can more easily work on issues in the processing, identify issues and resolve them in the end. In the master data navigator, we are now currently working on implementing a granular access permission control for entities. So rather than having all the users have access to the entities and being able to modify all of them, we will add a permission model that allows us to define which entities a user can modify, which entities he can view, and which entities may be completely hidden for certain users. For the BIS mapper, we are still working on the advanced debugging support. We've had this on our backlog for a little bit. It's been pushed out because of other priorities, but we are now finally in the implementation phase, I believe, for this debugging support in the BIS mapper developer studio, so that you can better debug and analyze your code while you're developing it. We're also looking at further use cases for the AI assistant, especially in the context of API integration. to allow you to use AI assistance, for example, while defining an API interface. In the file viewer, we are improving the display of structured messages further, of course, primarily EDI formats, so that it becomes easier to browse and navigate those messages in a structured view. So, for example, segregated transaction by transaction. In the user management, we are finally at the end of our harmonization of our default groups and roles. So this has now covered, I believe, almost all of our applications, so that we can wrap this topic up and have these now correctly delivered in our installations, both for new installations and for updates. Next area of interest are our general integration capabilities. What have we delivered here in the past quarter? Small enhancements in some of our adapters and in the BIS mapping runtime. In the mapping runtime, we've added support for IDOC namespaces. That's a specific variant of IDOCs. We've added more functions. I'm here highlighting the base64 encoding and decoding functions, a typical use case for XML or JSON files that contain additional binary information that may be encoded in base64. And we've also improved the robustness here of multi-document output. So if you use maps that produce multiple documents at once in different formats, for example, we have made this more robust so that errors in one output do not affect maybe another output at the same time. In the OpenPGP adapter, we've improved our defaults. The default algorithms are now set to higher grade encryption and hash mechanisms. So this just means that if the partner doesn't require a certain encryption or hash algorithm, the adapter will default to a higher grade algorithm. In the SFTP client adapter, we've improved the file name configuration for multi-part attachments. This allows you to define the file name with some placeholders during the upload. And we've also improved the error details here for remote commands executed via secure shell, so that if errors occur on the remote side, you get better details about the error conditions. In the LDAP client adapter, we've implemented support for proxies, both HTTP and SOX type. And last but not least, we have implemented a new mailbox adapter now. It is in limited preview in this latest release. So it gives you an early access if you want to review it for new use cases, but it will only be delivered as a general available adapter in the next quarter. What does the mailbox adapter do? Well, it is a unified adapter now that allows multi-communication into a mailbox, meaning a file staging area. So users, external users, internal users can use different protocols to access the same data, somewhat similar to BIS file exchange, but with some enhanced capabilities. So we provide access to it through FTP as well as SFTP, through a browser app, through a REST API, and also in the future through our new BISLink agent that is also in development currently. So this unifies all the communication types into a single adapter and allows this to directly live inside the BIS application with files staged in the virtual file system that is also backed by our data store. So it is immediately also available as an active replicated file area. What else have we planned in our integration capabilities? As I mentioned earlier, in the BIS mapping, we want to improve the debugging capabilities, both on the developer side, so during developing of maps, but also here in the BIS mapping runtime to allow you to debug mapping executions after the fact in your for example, in your production environment. In the HTTP client adapter, we are adding improved support for client authentication using tokens. We've seen more frequently now that authentication tokens are not always retrieved through standard means like OAuth protocol, but often also through a custom API provided by a partner or a cloud service. And so we want to better support this, both retrieving and refreshing the token through custom APIs and integrating that directly with our HTTP client framework, so that it becomes easier for you to utilize custom APIs that you encounter at your partners that provide these token mechanisms through their own operations. In the mail client adapter, we're adding support for Microsoft 365 mail accounts through the native Microsoft Graph API. So that means that we will not just provide the, let's say, well-known SMTP and POP or IMAP protocols to access such mailboxes, but also the REST API through HTTPS that Microsoft offers here to access their Microsoft 365 mail accounts. So that's probably something that your security teams have an eye on. They would like to remove the use of SMTP and similar older mail protocols and replace them with HTTPS in most cases. So this is basically enabled with this feature in the mail adapter. On the platform side, we have also updated our technical API documentation for our BIS management APIs to the Open API 3 standard. So that basically impacts the management APIs that you can use to access and create or update master data in BIS itself through our standard APIs. And then, yeah, finally, we're of course always having ongoing research and implementations of new connectors for different cloud services and applications. In the area of technology improvements, we have made a major change in our Java runtime that we ship with the platform. We have switched now from Java 17 to Java 21. Doesn't have much of an impact on you. In most areas, of course, we have adjusted what needed to be adjusted, if anything, in our products and components to be compatible with Java 21. Typically, it is downward compatible, so anything that runs in Java 17 will also run in Java 21, with the exception of code that uses deprecated functions. So if anything, custom Java code that may have been developed on top of BIS in maybe some maps or some Bean shell scripts may need to be reviewed. But other than that, we don't expect any changes out of this for your typical code. So any map code that you just write with our map designer, whether it's the old big map or the new BIS map, or any process development that you have maybe done, will be immediately compatible with this new version of Java. Security, always, of course, also in the focus. So the new Java runtime, of course, brings security fixes. If you need a full list of those topics and changes, then please check the release notes and changelog as well. For the underlying system database driver, we have now changed our default for new installations with a SQL Server as a system database to use the standard Microsoft JDBC driver rather than the third-party JTDS driver that we have used in the past. So again, this is only applied for new installations. Update installations are not automatically migrated. If you do have a need or an interest in migrating from the old to the new JDBC driver for SQL Server, please also check the migration notes in the database guide. We have updated that driver also to the latest version shipped with BIS. And then finally, we have added support for the Amazon Linux operating system, specifically, of course, for deployments in AWS. What else have we planned in this area? I mentioned BISLink earlier. The BISLink agent and its infrastructure will also be uplifted to the latest platform of our products. So this is a technology uplift and also to a degree a re-implementation of some of the BISLink functionality to also work then together with our new mailbox adapter. In the user management, we are working on integrating with the SCIM v2 protocol. This is a standard API that allows managing user identities and permissions across systems. So this came also from customer feedback that this type of integration is used more widely. So we want to make sure that you can integrate our user management for the BIS products with your identity and access management solutions that you may have company-wide. We are also adding here the login capability with OpenID as a protocol, similar to things like SAML or LDAP login in the BIS portal. And then for the platform, we have plans and are in the implementation phase for changing our system database credentials. How are those stored? Currently, they're all stored locally, but we see more requests now, of course, to store them in, again, external credential vaults like HashiCorp, and also requests for authentication with, for example, Azure Active Directory or Kerberos. So basically removing some of the local credentials, local database credentials completely out of our products and only using authentication mechanisms against central credential store or central authentication mechanisms. In the area of operational cost reduction, we have made a number of changes in our process engine, improved the priority handling here. This has already been shipped for a little while. We've now making this the default for new installations. It basically removes some of the side effects that we had identified between the different priority buckets. So we saw that high volume of low priority processes still had some impact on the higher priority processes. So this improved handling here removes those side effects and isolates those priorities even further, so that truly a low priority process cannot impact a high priority process, for example. We've also further reducing the database footprint. It is now possible to disable writing the process info fields into the database. So once you remove the use of the classic front end in your environment, it is not necessary to write this information to the database anymore. And it is possible to solely rely on the process monitor that has its own persistence outside of the database. So this just brings us closer to the goal to really have all the runtime data be removed from the underlying database. But just to make this footprint that we have on the database ever more smaller and reduce the cost here. For Smart Retry, we have added the ability now to create and manage different profiles. And in the past, we only had one default profile that was not really manageable. We now allow you to create different profiles, change some of the Smart Retry thresholds, and also activate or deactivate the notifications for the retry, so that you can assign different profiles to different endpoints in the Smart Retry configuration. For message tracking, we've added a journal to better review and audit user actions that may be performed on workflows out of message tracking. I will show this in the demo shortly. The solution deployment has been enhanced to allow you also to deploy process solutions through the hot folders that the deployment manager offers. So this allows you to deploy both standard and custom solutions directly into the system, either locally to individual logical systems, or if you have a lot of logical systems and you might want to deploy an update to all of them, you can do this here through this mechanism all at once. And then finally, for the BIS FX, we have removed the intermediate step when you migrate from the older 6.5.2 to 6.7. It is now not necessary anymore to have an intermediate update to 6.7.150, but instead you can directly go to the latest version within the 6.7 releases. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I want to briefly demo the new capabilities for message tracking actions and journal. So in the message tracking application, we have added a view that allows you to basically determine what users have done, basically as a self-service on a particular workflow. If we see this primarily as a use case for when you offer message tracking access to business users and allow them to perform certain actions like a restart of a process, these actions can then be reviewed in that journal. The journal also allows you to leave a comment on a certain workflow. You see this here now. Currently, nothing's been logged here. I may add a comment working on this to tell my other colleagues that, yeah, I'm on top of it. I can then, for example, initiate a restart. Because I might have resolved an error in this process, or on the partner side, something has been resolved. I want to restart it. So I can offer this action, the restart action, as a self-service here in message tracking. It is then performed directly on the process engine through its API. So if I look back over to our process monitor, I can see this now, this process that I have restarted in message tracking. It already here has the flag that it was restarted. I can open this view and I can see this here as the last action. It was restarted by the user, myself in this case. So similarly, when restart actions or other actions like an acknowledgement or a terminate of a process are performed here in the process monitor, this information is then also transported back to the message tracking journal. So the same thing that I can do now here, restart after resolving issue, would now also be tracked here, of course. So I refresh my view here. I will see now, yep, I have two restarts here, one from the message tracking side, one directly here from the process monitor. And once I move back to tracking, I should now see the same information here in the journal. So I have one comment and then two restarts, one from within the tracking, one from the process monitor. So this keeps track of it, allows you to kind of audit what has the user done, if there are any questions, and yeah, work on, for example, errors more efficiently, maybe also across larger teams. All right, what else have we planned in the area of operations? In the process engine, we still are working on the reorganization, improving and harmonizing the reorganization of different monitoring data in different data sources to work across, and also work based on the process status, so that you can more centrally configure the reorganization of all this data in a central location. In the user management, we are adding a small enhancement to log inactive users automatically. So users that have not performed or logged in to the application in a certain time frame will automatically be closed and locked, so that it becomes easier to identify inactive accounts and clean up access on a regular basis. And on the platform itself, we planning to make it easier to migrate tenants. So that means usually a logical system can be more easily moved from one system to another system, or also data from one logical system can be more easily migrated to another logical system. So this gives us more flexibility to also change our infrastructure and deployment, let's say ground to cloud or cloud back to ground, right? And move our data associated with a particular logical system more easily between these environments. Finally, in the area of deployment models, what have we shipped here in the latest releases? For the Developer Studio, it is now possible also to apply hotfixes for individual plugins, like the BIS Mapping Designer or the Process Designer. So it's not necessary to reinstall the entire application if we just need to fix a small issue in one of our plugins. So just a small enhancement here. For the BIS file exchange, we have separated the HTTP listener applications. So that means that the 4 different types of listener applications here can be associated with external or internal listeners more easily. So it's possible to, for example, to expose the admin console only on an internal listener. I don't want to expose that at all to public internet, even though it is, of course, secured with credentials. But to reduce the potential attack surface, we don't even want to expose it externally. But on the other hand, permits or our API, we might want to expose externally so that our partners can use those functions regularly. And then finally, in the BIS Landscape Manager, we have made some improvements around the installation of SAP, JCO, and SNC libraries and resources. And we've also added improvement here for the repair installation so that the diffdb schema repair is also performed when we repair a BIS instance or a BIS environment. What else have we planned here? Currently, we're still looking at these ongoing topics of cloud and container support. It will still mean that we gradually ship enhancements here. Dynamic and elastic scaling support is still on our list of things to improve. Same goes for defining the application and the service as code for easier rollout across the infrastructure. And we're also always looking at supporting additional cloud native databases as system database. So we often see in the public clouds that we get variations of, let's say, well-known on-premise cloud database deployments like Oracle or Postgres or Microsoft SQL Server, but they might slightly vary when they are then offered as a cloud service, right? Are they managed by the cloud service? Are they provided as a like-for-like replacement for an on-premise deployment? So those are variations that we do need to look